Hey everybody, Project D here. We're going to talk about making some drums from scratch. This is basically going to be a rock beat, but you could use this process pretty much for anything you want. So when you start up Garageband, you've got this piano track kind of comes up by default. So we're going to click the info button down here and then select drum kit. I'm going to change it to a rock kit. So when that gets done, you'll see the drum appear right there. And there it is, so we can close this since we don't need it anymore. Now let's create a part up here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the Apple key and I'm going to click in that measure and then a part appears. So let me go ahead and double click on that, and then at the bottom you'll see that part and you'll see this grid here that I talked about. I did a blog post on that, so you can go check that out if you want. So there's the grid that you can see right there. Now, the quantization, meaning the smallest note that you can use, is determined by this little ruler. And right now it's a quarter note, so we want it to be a little smaller than a quarter note. So let's select eighth note. That'll probably be about all we need. Okay, so I'm going to take this little slider right here and I'm going to slide it over. And that way it kind of stretches that out. It doesn't make notes any longer. It just kind of explodes the view so you can see it a little better. And now you can see the little divisions in here. It's probably hard to see on the video. But each one of these is divided up into 4, and that makes 16th notes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down here till I get to C1. Now obviously the easiest way to do this would be with a keyboard, just play it in. But if you don't have a keyboard, here's how you have to do it. So now I'm going to hold down my Option key, I'm sorry, not my Option key, my Apple key again. Okay, and we got a pencil. I'm just going to click, and then drum appears there. So I'm going to hold it right here on the note E. I'm going to click again. Okay, that's actually a flam, so I think I got E flat, so let me move it up. Alright, and there we go. I've got an E flat. So I can go back here, and I'm going to create another bass drum note and another note. Okay, so basically what I have here is quarter notes on the bass drum and snare drum. So bass drum on 1 and 3, snare drum on 2 and 4. And since I'm going to be playing this over and over, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to click the loop button so I can just kind of hear it repeat. I'm going to take this little yellow loop and make it a little smaller there. So I can just repeat that. So I can either push the play button or I can push space bar and it'll play. Okay, that's basically what your for your basic rock beat, that's what your bass and snare are going to be doing. So I'm going to take the hi-hat here. Okay, I'm going to take the hi-hat with the stick right here, and I'm going to hold down my Option key again. Okay, now I don't want to play quarter, well, I'm just going to play quarter notes just to show you. So instead of creating all those, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down my Option key. So anytime in GarageBand you want to copy something, hold down your Option key, and then click and drag. And that's what you get. Okay, so that's an easy way to do it. If you didn't want to step it in, it's pretty much about as much work as doing it the other way. So now, okay, so that's kind of a basic rock beat right there. You may have heard this. Let me go up here and look for a cowbell. Let's see, I know it's up here somewhere in this range. There we go. So I can take these notes. I'm going to select them all, just clicking and dragging. I'm going to drag them up to this A flat here, which is a cowbell, and now I've got this. Okay, pretty usable rock beat. Okay, kind of boring though. So let me take these, I'm going to drag them back down to my closed hi-hat. Now I'm just going to delete these just for sake of clarity. I'm going to take this first beat, which is a quarter note, and I'm going to drag it. I'm going to make it an eighth note. Now I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to use my drag again, and I'm going to paste it. Actually, I can do it a couple times, and then I can just grab a bigger chunk and put it there. Alright, now when I play this, I'm going to have your basic rock beat right there. Works for a ton of songs. A little boring, but you hear it a lot. Okay, so what you can do to make your beat move forward a little bit is put some notes kind of off the beat. So right here, this line, that's beat 2, there's beat 3, beat 4 right there. So all of these are lining up on the beat. You'll notice some of the hi-hat notes aren't, but the bass and the snare are lining up on the beat. So I'm going to take this bass drum, I'm going to create another note here. I'm going to make it a quarter note. Sorry, eighth note, and I'm going to drag it over. So now it's not sitting right on the beat. So what this green eighth note right now is going to do is kind of propel things into beat 3. So we call this being on the and. So this one is on the and of 2. Okay, and this bass drum beat's on 3. So it's going to kind of drive things forward a little more. So let's hit space bar, see what it sounds like. Okay, that's probably sounding a little more like a rock beat you've heard of. So now to spice it up, we can take these hi-hat notes and we can make them an open hi-hat note. So let's see what this sounds like. Okay, so now I've got a little more interesting beat. Okay, you can drag these back if you want to have a little more of a heavy sound. You can select all of these, put them on this open hi-hat. So that's the stick hitting the open hi-hat. Okay, go a little bit heavier beat. Okay, so let's say we have this basic beat here. And you can actually kind of spice it up by putting some of these ands. You can put them in different places. You can actually take this snare drum here, shorten it, and put a snare, and take that bass drum part, put it to a snare drum part, have that on the and, like this. Doesn't really drive things forward as much, so let's drag it back there because it sounds a little more like a rock beat. Alright, let's turn off this loop, and on YouTube I notice a lot of people are really critical when people do this, when they use that option drag to copy and paste, because they say, oh, well, you can just drag, you can put your cursor at the edge right here. Alright, and then you can just kind of keep dragging it. Actually, that doesn't loop it, that drags empty space. So put it up towards the top. See the little circle there means when I drag this, I'm going to loop it. Okay, and people are really critical kind of when you copy and paste instead of looping, but there's a reason why you would do that. If you take this and you loop it, you're going to sound like a machine, because it is a machine. So every one of these beats is going to sound just like this. So if you're doing techno or rap, that's perfectly fine. That repetitiveness is not really going to be bad for that particular style. But a rock drummer is not going to play every beat the same. And he's not going to keep playing the same beat over and over, because rock drummers will kind of vary the beat here and there to kind of add emphasis. So if you're going to do the loop, what I suggest you do is take your slider, move it there, and then hit Apple T. And what I've done is I split this, okay? Because what I like to do is I like to add some fills on the end so things aren't quite the same. So I'm going to take this whole group and I'm going to copy and paste it again. Again, I'm not going to loop it because I don't want everything to be exactly the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this measure right here. So here we have it highlighted down here, and I'm going to erase this, erase these hi-hat notes. I'm going to add a fill, because a real drummer is not going to keep playing the hi-hat while a fill is going on. It's going to obviously be a machine, because a real drummer's not going to do this. Remember, we were talking about doing rock beats. I'm going to take this, I am going to make it a little shorter here. Alright, so I'm going to take this, put a note there. That's snare drum, by the way. Let me copy, put another one, let's see. Let me put a little flam there. Okay, so move that down to kind of a little flam, which is something a drummer might do. Let me go ahead and change the quantization here, change it to a 16th note. Alright, so I can get a little more interesting drum part here. So I'm going to move this over to right there. Alright, and now I'm going to have, let me put one more in there. Okay, I'll put one right there. Actually, you know what? I'm going to take that one and I'm going to move it right here. Okay, so that's going to be a fill directly on the snare. So if I play that, it's going to sound like this. Okay, so I don't like that flam. I'm going to take it and leave that there. I didn't like that last flam, so I'm going to go back and play that again. Okay, sounds okay. It's pretty mechanical. Like I said, and if you loop things over and over, you're really going to get that happening a lot. Okay, That sounds probably a little more like what a real drummer might do. Like I said, it's still a little mechanical. But anyway, that's how you can make some beats, make some simple fills. Remember, if you're going to make a fill, turn off the hi-hat, erase that hi-hat note where you put that fill, because that's not something a drummer would do. And then in the next part, I'm going to talk about how to make these sound not so mechanical and have a little more of a realistic sound like what a real drummer would do. All right, so see you in the next one.